UFC Fight Night, Thiago Santos, Jamahal Hill, full card prediction video by yours truly here at Boxing MMA Picks. He goes by Zahn, I go by Harris as usual. Fight by fight breakdowns, fight by fight analysis from that betting perspective specifically. We want to let you know which fights are worth the value, which fights to avoid, which underdog has the best shot at winning, and some parlay action towards the end of the video as well. Make sure you hit the thumbs up on this video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button to the At Boxing MMA Picks YouTube channel. And of course, most importantly, we want to hear from you in the comments. For this UFC Fight Night, it is also the finale of The Ultimate Fighter, so we will be going through those fights at their respective times. We have a total of 12 fights. 6 of them are on the prelim, 6 of them are on the main card. So let's get started with fight number 1 of the prelims. We have Mayra Bueno Silva taking on Stephanie Egger. Bueno Silva beat Yanan Wu back in April. She's considered a striker. She's a solid striker at that. Somewhat of a Muay Thai style. She comes forward, front kicks for distance, but looking to put that pressure on you. She has a good calf kick, good overhand right, pretty solid jab as well. She's a good pressure fighter. She's good at combinations, looking to engage, but still sort of having that technique within those combinations or within that engagement borderline brawl, because she can get aggressive and she has good power. She does have a good second gear, a little bit one dimensional though, in that she can't really change up her style of attack. But she is a good grappler, so she does have some diversification to her game. Very susceptible to takedowns, just 69% in terms of her defense average. But in terms of actual numbers, she's had 7 UFC fights and she's been taken down at least once in 6 of those 7 UFC fights. So her opponents always seem to find to get it to the mat. She also slows down a bit, takes away from her explosiveness, takes her away from her ability to commit the pressure, although she still can be effective. So pretty solid bantamweight contender here versus Stephanie Egger, who's on a 2-fight winning streak after beating Jessica Rose Clark in February. She's a judo style fighter. She looks okay in the stand up. She has a decent jab, decent straight punch, decent movement. Fairly basic in her ability, though. However, it is serviceable. She doesn't really handle pressure too well, but she will use it to her advantage with the judo. Pretty solid on the ground, good takedown defense, but also a pretty good clinch. Good judo takedowns in sort of those compromised positions where her opponents are putting pressure on her. And then when she gets on top, she has decent top control, decent positional improvements. She is a judo black belt again, plus we saw her submission IQ in her last fight. So that's something that she is able to accomplish on the ground. What makes this fight really intriguing is that while there's key advantages for both fighters, each of their advantages have some risk involved. I think Mayra Bueno Silva is better on the feet, more dangerous on the feet as well. Her striking is more dynamic. She has that pressure style that gives Stephanie Egger problems. However, Bueno Silva doesn't have the best striking defense. I can see Egger landing some effective jabs or some effective straight punches as the fight goes on. Stephanie Egger, on the other hand, is better on the ground. Better takedowns with the judo. She's good on top. She has a good clinch. However, Bueno Silva, high level grappler, she can work off of her back as well. So Egger doesn't want to be caught slipping there. But ultimately, I'm going to side with Stephanie Egger on this one. I think Bueno Silva will look good early in this fight. And that's potentially where she can win this fight. Again, is early with that aggression, that pace, that power. But and again, I think she will have the overall striking advantages. But I think that Stephanie Egger will find a way to take this fight to the ground. Will find a way to sort of have some control time. And even if she's not completely successful with that in the early part of the fight, I think as the fight wears on, she will find more success as just a fighter with a better cardio tank. So she's proven that she can resort to getting the fight to the ground in some way at this level. We see her numbers here, small UFC sample size, but nonetheless, 3 takedowns per fight, or per average, I should say, per 15 minutes. So she finds a way to get it there. Bueno Silva doesn't have the best takedown defense. I can see Egger edging out rounds in her favor due to that factor, in addition to Mayra Bueno Silva tiring out. So close fight. Again, Bueno Silva very dangerous. She can win early in the fight, but I think as the fight progresses, this fight is going to sort of go in Stephanie Egger's favor. So I'm going to side with Stephanie Egger to get us started.
Yeah, this is a good fight to start the card. Stephanie Egger is going to have that judo, that high-level judo in this fight. But ultimately, I'm going to lean towards Mayra Bueno Silva. I think her jiu-jitsu is enough to defend a lot of the grappling that Egger is going to be utilizing in this fight. And I think that Silva has a big advantage on the feet. She could hurt her there. So I'm going to go with Silva here. I'm not sure who's the favorite in this fight, but I think she can do enough to negate some of that grappling. And I think she has a big advantage on the feet. So I'm going to go Silva here to get the win here.
Quick comment on the odds. Somewhat funny. Mayra Bueno Silva started as the favorite, minus 140, kind of in that area. As of right now, Mayra Bueno Silva is the even money underdog at plus 105. So money seems to be coming in on Stephanie Egger. I think that's interesting. But to your point, Bueno Silva definitely has a shot. I mean, she was the favorite at one point, so not surprising there. Let's move on to the second fight of our prelims, Cory McKenna versus Miranda Granger. Cory McKenna had a split decision loss to Elise Reed back in March. Decent hands, decent combinations. She likes to come forward. She likes to fight from center. She has a good jab. Really just good boxing technique in general. I'm not going to see many kicks from her. Might be some questions with her striking defense after her last fight, or might be something she corrected, very young, just 23 years old. We can see a lot of improvements fight over fight from her. So I wouldn't be surprised if she's cleaned that up a little bit. She showed in her last fight that she can land a takedown, good entries, good ground and pound. But I would say, striking and maybe more specifically the boxing, probably what she does best. But again, like I said, just 23 years old, really rounding out her game here. And I mean, she could be a fighter that can kind of put the pieces together and really be effective as a contender. But we'll have to see how she does against Miranda Granger, who hasn't competed since November 2020. She lost to Ashley Yoder at that time. She's tall and long for the division. She's going to have a 10-inch reach advantage, 4 inches in the height, and that's probably more than what the on paper amount shows. Again, tall and long for the division, like I mentioned. I would say her striking, though, average at best. She's a bit slow. Her hands aren't that active. She is light on her feet. She does fight from the outside, but her movement itself is not the quickest. In addition to that, she has pretty suspect takedown defense at just 40%. And I think you know where I'm going with this one, so I won't keep the prediction part of it long. I think Cory McKenna pretty much is better everywhere in this fight. I think she wins a clear decision. Miranda Granger to me just really isn't UFC level. Whereas, like I mentioned, I think Cory McKenna at 23 years old, I mean, I think she can be a legitimate contender in this division maybe when she's 25, 26, 27 years old. She has the pieces, she has the striking, she's shown that she has a ground game. And again, I think she really just does everything better than Miranda Granger, especially with a Miranda Granger that hasn't competed in almost 2 years. So I'm going Cory McKenna all the way on this one. I think she wins a clear decision here.
Okay, I'll actually give Miranda Granger. I think she has the striking advantage in this fight with that 10-inch reach. I think that's going to be a big deal for McKenna to get under, right? So that's a big reach. That's big, right? So Cory, though, again, she's young, so I expect her to improve from her last fight. Takedowns, she should be able to get them in this fight. She has good top control, and she can ride it out for 3 rounds with that style, right? If she has a fighter that can't really stop the takedowns, and I don't think Granger has much to stop that. So I'm going to go with McKenna, but I think it's close. I think Granger, if she keeps on the feet, I think that reach could be an issue. But I'm going to go with Cory McKenna having the more well-rounded game at this point with the grappling. And I think the grappling's going to get her the win here.
Third fight of our prelims, Jason Witt versus Josh Quinlan. Jason Witt lost to Phil Rowe back in February. Really a one-dimensional style in some ways. He's going to try to go for that wrestling right away. He does have good takedowns. We see those really inflated takedown numbers there, but almost more importantly, 50% on the accuracy side of things. Has those good takedowns. He does have decent top control to go along with it. Also a BJJ brown belt, so has that sort of wrestling grappling combination that can really be overwhelming for a lot of different fighters. His stand up isn't the best, but he will show decent movement around the ring. He will show switch stance. He'll throw some kicks. The punches are looping and one at a time, though. But I will say his jab is somewhat decent now as he kind of improves his striking to really try to be at this level. But like I said, overall, just pretty one dimensional. Again, what he's going to look to do in most of his fights: fight from the outside, use that striking, use that jab just enough until he can sort of rush in and go for that takedown. And I mean, hey, it's worked. Again, you look at the takedown numbers, you look at the takedown accuracy numbers, it has worked. Josh Quinlan, on the other hand, coming from Dana White Contender Series, his last fight was a no contest in September, September of last year, of course. It was originally a win for Josh Quinlan, but the result was later turned to a no contest after he basically tested positive for a performance enhancing drug. A lot of movement on the feet, a lot of fakes, a lot of feints, pressuring when he needs to, fighting from the outside when he needs to. He has good striking speed, good striking technique. He can be explosive. Looks like he has good power. Only 5 wins, only 5 fights, but has a 100% finish rate to go along with it. He uses a lot of switch stance. The hands stay pretty tight. Has that sort of kickboxing type of stance, type of approach to the stand up. I haven't really seen any proof of a high IQ as it relates to a ground game. I've seen him resort to kind of brute strength to try to bring fights to the ground rather than technique. But again, it's a small sample size of fights to really look at and study. And, his opponents haven't really been the type of opponent that Jason Witt is. So there are some question marks there. And I think that's where, Jason Witt can show that there's levels to this, control him on the ground, do what he wants, and kind of, lay and pray or even ground and pound for 2 rounds. But I mean, the way that I'm looking at this fight, I mean, it's been less than a year since Josh Quinlan took PEDs. He's 29 years old. He's in his athletic prime. He's going up against an aged 35-year-old in Jason Witt, who just got knocked out pretty badly 6 months ago. So I can see why the odds are in Josh Quinlan's favor. And like I said, it's not easy. Witt has that wrestling advantage, mainly due to the fact that I haven't seen anything from Quinlan, but also due to the fact that Jason Witt is a pretty solid wrestler. Again, Jason Witt has that, wrestling IQ to game plan for it throughout the fight. And Witt definitely has at least 2 rounds worth of cardio in him. Again, like I said, that could spell trouble for Josh Quinlan. But I think there's a big discrepancy in the striking. I think Quinlan can hurt Jason Witt. And I think that's kind of where my thoughts are taking me when it comes to what I think will happen, how I envision this fight going. I think Josh Quinlan will be smart enough to fight at range. Again, like I mentioned, he has the ability to do that. I think he will kind of explode in when he needs to. He's the faster striker, he's the faster mover on the feet. And again, he has that striking advantage to potentially catch Jason Witt. Phil Rowe showed what a better striker could do to Jason Witt. Obviously, Phil Rowe may be a better striker than Quinlan, but nonetheless, Quinlan is a good striker from what I've seen. Let's see how it translates to this level. But I think it's good enough for me to conclude that it's better than Jason Witt's, and for me to conclude that he could hurt Jason Witt on the feet here. So I'm kind of banking on that happening. And as a result, Josh Quinlan is going to be my pick.
Okay, so yeah, I can see Jason Witt coming out here, pushing the pace, the wrestling, looking good. But again, Quinlan doesn't need much. He just needs 1 or 2 punches really to get it going. And this guy has good power. Obviously, he only has 5 fights in the UFC, so he's new to this. He's young as far as fights go professionally. I believe he has some amateur fights. But again, I don't think he's fought a fighter with Witt's wrestling. So I could see Witt coming out here, staying out of danger, winning some rounds with that wrestling, because he does have the takedowns and he can stay on top. I can see that happen, but the problem with Witt is his chin. He can't take a shot. Like, this guy's been knocked out many times. And at some point, I think Quinlan's going to land, and I think he's going to knock out Jason Witt here. Jason, again, can't take shots well. Quinlan has heavy hands. Be careful, though, because, again, this Quinlan guy, he only has 5 fights professionally. This is a big step up for Quinlan. But I'm going to go with Quinlan as well. I just think he needs one shot here. Jason Witt, I think his chin's gone. So I'm going to go Quinlan to get it done.
Fight number 4, Bryan Battle versus Takashi Sato. For Takashi Sato, 2-fight losing streak. Lost to Gunnar Nelson back in March. Good stand-up, good boxing. He is introduced as a striker. He's a southpaw, a bit of a karate-like stance in his approach to the striking. He can put on pressure. He can close distance. He has a lot of fakes and feints, a lot of in and out movement. Again, light on the feet, unsurprisingly, again, with that karate-like stance. Decent timing. Doesn't really move his head much. He actually absorbs a lot more than he dishes out, which is always concerning. Don't expect him to land takedowns whatsoever. He does have judo, though, which theoretically should give him decent takedown defense. But that last fight kind of showed that his takedown defense might be a little bit suspect, albeit Gunnar Nelson, who's pretty solid in that department. But overall, Takashi Sato, a little bit one-dimensional, a little bit straightforward in his approach. You're not really going to see much of a difference to his approach to the game. Bryan Battle, on the other hand, beat Tresean Gore via unanimous decision back in February. He has decent movement. He's pretty light on his feet. Looked a lot better in his last fight compared to his Ultimate Fighter finale, even physique-wise. Fights from the outside, looks to be a pretty solid counterpuncher, pretty diverse striker. He will point and fight at times, especially with those kicks. Really likes to throw the kicks out there. His activity has been pretty decent so far in the UFC. We see the significant strikes landed per minute. Obviously, small sample size, but it gives you an indication as to the type of activity that he has been showing. I can see a pretty close fight on the feet here. In some ways, I can understand Bryan Battle being the favorite. I think he's a little bit sizable as a favorite. I don't think he should be a minus 260 because, ultimately, he hasn't faced anyone who's UFC level yet. So this is a big step up in competition for him, regardless of what level you feel Takashi Sato is at. I don't think Bryan Battle gets it done. I'll kind of say that. I think Takashi Sato can be slightly better on the feet, at least in terms of optics, right? Sato's going to be that fighter coming forward. Battle's going to be that fighter fighting from the outside. And I think it's going to be relatively close. I think they're going to both have their moments. I think the experience edge, of course, will be important as well in this fight. And it's, Bryan Battle, you can say, has the ground advantage, but it's not like he actively tries to bring the fight to the mat. So I do expect most of this fight to occur on the feet. I do expect a lot of 50-50 action, but Takashi Sato being, or I guess checking the box of quote unquote ring control, unless the UFC really just wants to keep the Bryan Battle name going, that ring control should be the difference in what's otherwise a 50-50 fight on the feet. So I can see Takashi Sato getting it done. If nothing else, like I said, I think this is 50-50. And with Bryan Battle being way in favor at minus 260, I just can't see that happening. Dog or pass from a betting perspective, and from a pick perspective, I'm also looking at the dog. Takashi Sato is going to be my pick.
Okay, let's start with Sato. Takashi, this guy has good counters, good power. Striker mainly. He does have the judo, but he wants to keep it on the feet. Bryan Battle is going to be moving down in weight from 185 down to 170. So he's going to be in much better shape than what we've seen. And he's going to be fighting a much smaller opponent from what he's used to. Striking could be close, will be close, but Battle has more activity. And one thing Battle has going in this fight that I think is going to be important is the grappling advantage. I see him getting takedowns. I could see him even just riding out a boring win, laying on top, and just getting on top, not doing much damage. Might even get a submission, might get a finish. But I can just see Battle utilizing that wrestling to tilt the fight in his favor. So I'm going to go Bryan Battle to get this one done here. I think the UFC is giving him a fighter that he can wrestle and he can take down. And Battle's a smart guy. That's one thing he does have. He's young in his career, but he has really high IQ for a fighter at this point. So I'm going to go Bryan Battle, utilize that wrestling, and get it done.
All right, let's move on to the fifth fight of our prelims. We have Terrance McKinney versus Erick Gonzalez. Terrance McKinney is actually the biggest favorite on this card at a whopping minus 900. Terrance McKinney lost to Drew Dober, of course, back in March. He's kind of a finish or be finished type of fighter. 12-4, 100% finish rate. With those 12 wins, 5 of them via KO, TKO, 7 of them via submission. With his 4 losses, all via finish. So he's going to be someone that puts, 100% on the line early in the fight, finish or be finished. Of course, we know he has a few very quick knockouts on his resume, a few sort of all time in terms of amount of time it's taken to end fights. He's a southpaw, really dangerous hands early in the fight, dangerous striker in general, good with the hands, good with the kicks too, aggressive and high paced early on. He has shown us wrestling. It's a strength of his when he chooses to do so, in addition, of course, to the credit that he gets for striking. His cardio has shown to be a serious red flag, and his striking technique, really isn't the highest. So, once he gasses out, he's very prone to making a lot of errors. And again, I think that Drew Dober fight, really kind of, hindered or revealed, I should say, a lot of red flags in his game. Erick Gonzalez, on the other hand, hasn't competed since October. He lost to Jim Miller at that time. From what I've seen, he's pretty comfortable on the feet, decent movement, regular calf kick. I've seen him stand switch as well. Good striking diversity. He does look a little bit out of control sometimes on the feet. Looks to have some clinch work as well. He's capable of landing the takedown. Wouldn't necessarily call him a wrestler, though. Again, like I said, we saw major holes in Terrance McKinney's game after his last fight, albeit he almost got another impressive win on his resume. And again, I think that minus 100 is just way too wild for almost any fighter. Never mind a fighter that has, a lot of holes to their game. It could be a firefight. They both have that style for it. And from a betting perspective, just based on odds, you might want to go dog or pass just based on that logic. But from a pick perspective, I still have to side with Terrance McKinney, just under the impression that he has fixed some of his decision-making errors from his last fight, because outside of the decision-making and outside of the red flags, he is the more dangerous striker. He is the better wrestler. He is the better athlete, and he should be able to get the job done without too much problem. But again, it's just too much red flags for me to even include this on a parlay. I think Terrance McKinney gets it done, but I don't want anything to do with it from a betting perspective.
Yeah, Terrance McKinney all day here. Terrance McKinney, when he fought Drew Dober, he landed some bombs on Dober, dropped him. At one point, I thought he finished Dober. I think he dropped him a couple times in that fight. And you look at Rafael Alves, who fought Dober this past weekend, and Alves landed some hammers on Dober, and Dober ate them like nothing. He did not fall. He didn't drop. He ate the shots. So it makes you think that this Terrance McKinney guy has that touch of death power, that he's likely going to knock this guy out. Like, he's like, if Jim Miller can knock out this guy, I'm pretty sure Terrance McKinney can get it done. There's obviously concerns with his cardio, but I think in this fight, he's going to be able to dictate the fight. If he doesn't knock him on the first round, I can see him getting a takedown, staying on top, getting his cardio back, winning the third round as well the same way. But likely I see him getting a finish here. So I'm going to go with Terrance McKinney here to get this one done.
Final fight of our prelims, we have Sam Alvey versus Michał Oleksiejczuk. For Michał Oleksiejczuk, he had a unanimous decision loss to Dustin Jacoby back in March. He's a southpaw, quick starter, comes with that pace right away. Very high-paced fighter. He's coming forward at all times. He moves pretty well, a lot of head movement with those punches, continuous in and out movement, continuous usage of fakes and feints. Loves that left straight to the body as a southpaw. That body punch is a very effective punch for him. Constant pressure, constant pace, constant activity. Definitely a fighter who is a lot to deal with. And he's going up against Sam Alvey, which, we sort of know the script on him at this point. But nonetheless, lost to Brendan Allen back in February. Winless now in his last 8 fights. He has not won a fight since 2018, and he's been active throughout that entire time. He's one of those tough vets who's always game, won't go away. He fights from the outside, doesn't really have the most active hands, but he does engage more when he's hurt. But not much else to say about his game. Respectfully, probably the worst fighter on the UFC roster. This one's interesting because both of these fighters, their last fights were at 205. This fight is happening at middleweight. Michał Oleksiejczuk sort of finally dropping down to 185. We know that he wasn't the biggest at 205, but he was still handling his own. So this could be a much better weight for him, this middleweight division. The only thing that we can give Sam Alvey is that he's durable, right? I mean, I don't think the durability will matter here, though, because it's effective against guys that don't really have that cardio, that think that they can steamroll through him and then they get gassed out and then Alvey starts to look okay. But with Oleksiejczuk, unless that weight cut really takes away from his cardio, we don't have any reason to believe that just based on who he's shown us to be. Oleksiejczuk should be able to keep that same pace for 3 rounds easily, like we've always seen him able to do. So I'm Oleksiejczuk all day here. Sam Alvey's strengths, which is that toughness, that grit, that ability to weather the storm, I don't think it'll matter here because Oleksiejczuk just won't gas out. So should be pretty easy. Oleksiejczuk all day.
Okay, so this looks like it's Sam Alvey's last fight on his contract, and I don't think the UFC is going to sign him back, even with the win, because this guy's on a big losing streak. So this could be the last fight Sam Alvey has in the UFC, or if he wins, the UFC signs him. You never know, right? But I doubt it. But stylistically, Michał Oleksiejczuk is going to come in with that. He's going to march him down. He's going to march him down, throwing that heavy left. He has a really good left. And he drops a lot of opponents with that left hand. Really good southpaw in the UFC. Sam Alvey, though, one thing going for him in this fight is because of Michel's aggressiveness with his striking. He just goes in throwing that left, like heavy hands, throwing hooks. Sam Alvey has sneaky counters. He has good counters. That's one thing he does have. That's one thing he's really good at is counter punching. So these odds are crazy. Like these odds are crazy. Plus what, 600? Like that's crazy to me because I think that Michał Oleksiejczuk fights a reckless style, albeit he's good at it, albeit he wins fights that way, and he's gonna have the advantage. So he should use that style. But that style is a reckless style that tailors to Sam Alvey. He's gonna be rushing into Sam Alvey. Sam Alvey just has to feint one way. An uppercut or just it's a quick counter, a quick straight, a quick left hand straight in as he comes in, right? So it's a tough fight for me because at those odds, you want to pick a fighter that's going to go in there with a smooth fighting style that's going to take him down, that's going to wrap him up, choke him out, or just keep taking him down. At those odds, it should be complete domination, and there really shouldn't be much paths for the other guy to win. But I think in this fight, Alvey does have a legit path here by knockout. So it's a tough fight for me as far as the odds. I can't make a bet on it. But I think for the channel, I got to make a pick. I got to pick Michał Oleksiejczuk. If everything goes to plan, he's going to go out there, pressure Sam Alvey. He's going to land that left. He's going to hurt him. He's going to finish him. But again, don't count this guy out, Sam Alvey, because he could get a counter punch because he's fighting a guy that's going to give him that opportunity. But again, Michael's my pick to get the win here.
All right, so let's move on to the main card. Fight number 1, we have Ariane Lipski versus Priscila Cachoeira. Lipski had a unanimous decision win over Mandy Bohm back in September. She's a striker through and through. We know she has hands. We know she has good power. Her hands are pretty crisp. She can put combinations together. She likes the fight coming forward. We know that she doesn't have takedown defense. It's been an issue for her. Doesn't really do much off of her back. That's how fighters have been able to beat her. She has worked on that ground game to become more well-rounded, but sort of still lacks, in my opinion. Probably won't matter in this fight versus Priscila Cachoeira. We see the numbers there. Doesn't really take the fight to the ground either. She had a unanimous decision win over Ji Young Kim back in February. She's a pressuring brawler type of fighter. She's going to throw heavy hands. She's going to stay right in front of you. Most of her punches are power punches, doesn't really set things up, just kind of stalk and power, right? And again, she in her own right is a liability on the ground. She also doesn't have the best takedown defense. I don't think the takedown defense will matter on either side here, because both of these ladies are somewhat similar in that they are one-dimensional fighters. They are dangerous strikers. They both lack a ground game, and they both actually have some cardio issues as well. The thing is, though, is that I believe that Ariane Lipski is simply the more talented striker, or I should say, the better striker of the two. While the striking danger is present on both sides, and you can argue it's maybe a little bit more dangerous on the side of Cachoeira, just based on that brawling style. Ariane Lipski striking offers way more technique by comparison. Both of them will gas out as the fight goes on, and unless either fighter hurts the other early on, which can very well happen, I expect Lipski's technique to be the difference as she pulls away as this fight goes on. Again, when Cachoeira gets really tired, it's really bad. When Lipski gets tired, still maintains, I should say, some of that technique, just kind of loses it from a power and a speed perspective. So I'm going to go Ariane Lipski here. I'm not calling this a confident pick by any means. I mean, both of these ladies are gonna slug it out. But again, I think Ariane Lipski is more talented and thus should get the job done in a fight that should stay on the feet. Ariane Lipski is going to be my pick.
Yeah, Ariane Lipski all day here in this spot. I like you here. The more well-rounded fighter. She has the ground game. She has submissions. She can strike. She's gonna be the cleaner striker. Priscila, though, she has that zombie, that Terminator style. At some point, she just marches forward, doesn't care about being hit, and then she just marches you down, throwing big bombs, and it's worked for her in some fights. But Lipski, I got to go with the cleaner game from Ariane Lipski here. I think she's going to win the striking advantage, the striking point of this fight. And I think she can also take this to the mat. I think if she wants to get Priscila down, I think she has the technique to get her to the mat. So I'm going to go Ariane Lipski here to pull this one out.
Second fight of our main card, we have Augusto Sakai taking on Sergey Spivak. Sakai's on a 3-fight losing streak now at this point, after losing to Tai Tuivasa back in December. He's a striker. He has that Thai boxing style of stand-up in some ways, mostly hands, occasional kick here and there. The hands are accurate, though. He has some pop in his hands, like any other heavyweight, of course. He has good punch IQ, decent movement. We actually see him fight from the outside at times. I just don't think he's a threat to land a takedown, though. Definitely willing to use that clinch against the cage to his advantage, but don't expect any takedowns to come along with it. So a striker as a heavyweight. Of course, that's a discrepancy versus Sergey Spivak, who pretty well rounded at this point. He beat Greg Hardy back in March. He's a combat sambo fighter. The striking is looking cleaner as the fights go on, especially in that Greg Hardy fight. Bit more of a counter puncher. He has good timing in general as well. And to that point of the timing, he uses that to look for takedown opportunities. He has that chain wrestling. He has a good clinch against the cage as well. And if he does get you down, good top position. He can keep guys on the ground who are 20 pounds heavier than him. He has the ability to use his technique and his IQ to stay on top. In the past, he has sort of turtled up against big strikers. So I do question his takedown. I do question his striking defense. But again, we've seen striking improvements from him. So I'm curious to see how he comes in against this fight versus a striker in Augusto Sakai. Spivak is usually giving up some weight in this division. He comes in right around 245-ish. We know Sakai is going to come in at the top of the weight class. So that weight discrepancy is always something to watch out for. As I mentioned, it hasn't mattered too much for Spivak in terms of being able to implement his game. And really simply put here, Augusto Sakai is not the pressure type of striker or that one punch power type of striker that normally gives Sergey Spivak problems. Even guys that do have that striking style, Spivak has been able to beat them. I think about Tai Tuivasa. Spivak has a win over him. Carlos Felipe in some ways. Greg Hardy in his last fight. Spivak has wins over these types of guys that could give him problems. And again, Spivak overall just has the more well rounded game at this point. Striking exchanges could be 50-50 at times, while Sergey Spivak can resort to a good ground game to push rounds in his favor. I like Spivak as a pick here. I think the odds are really decent. I wish they were a little bit closer, of course, but I definitely understand why they are the way they are, and I definitely agree with them. Sergey Spivak is going to be my pick.
Yeah, Sergey Spivak all day in this spot here. Augusto Sakai, he's Brazilian, but he doesn't know Brazilian jiu-jitsu. This guy, Spivak's going to take him down at some point. And Spivak, man, it looks good when he does those judo throws, and his single leg is really good, but the judo throws is really good to see him throwing 250-pound guys, flipping them in the air, getting on top. Really good top pressure, really good jiu-jitsu when he's on top. Good grappler. And he's fighting a guy in Sakai who's looking to knock you out. But again, as I mentioned, he's Brazilian, but he doesn't know Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So he's going to have a hard time, man. Sergey Spivak is going to get on top. And I think eventually Sakai is going to turn over. And then Spivak's going to keep punching. The ref's going to come in, stop the fight. I can see that type of ending here. So I'm going to go Sergey Spivak here to utilize his Brazilian jiu-jitsu to beat the Brazilian here.
Fight number 3 of our main card, and actually getting on to the Ultimate Fighter fights now. We're looking at the women here, the flyweight final, Brogdon Walker versus Juliana Miller. Studying both of their games primarily in their time on the Ultimate Fighter, just to kind of get the most recent and the most accurate kind of footage about them and commentary about them. Juliana Miller, from what I've seen, likes to come forward with her jab, really aggressive in her stand-up, looking to push the pace. Her aggression lacks some technique, but it is a lot of pressure that could give some fighters problems. She looks like she has a clinch game. She looks like she has a grappling game. Not sure how strong she is as a wrestler, but I've seen her be able to bring fights to the ground. She will essentially use that aggression even in her submission attempts, aggressively look for those submission attempts. Wouldn't say her top control or her ground and pound is great, but I think above all her activity is. And skill wise, I think she does have a lot to work on. Relatively young, she keeps going though. She looks like she's hungry. She looks like she has that toughness. She looks like she can and wants to brawl, and sort of really gives her all to try to get the win here. And she's going up against Brogdon Walker, a little bit of an older fighter. I think she's like 32, 33 years old at this point, if I'm not mistaken. She's a southpaw, but I'll be honest, not much I can say about her. I mean, she kind of lacks technique on the feet from what I've seen. She does have an active jab hand. Her combinations aren't really the best. She does like to come forward. She likes to close distance. She likes to keep the fight in close. She looks to engage. Her takedown defense seems to be there from what I've seen in her time on the Ultimate Fighter. And again, really like not much else to say in terms of her style approach, her offense, or her, where is she effective, so to speak. In general, I'm not too fond of either of these flyweights as it relates to their likelihood to be successful in the UFC. But the way that I'm seeing this, I'm seeing Juliana Miller as being the more capable fighter here. I think Juliana Miller has a higher ceiling. I think she has more intention with her aggression. I think she has a better pace and better activity throughout the fight. And again, I think she adds in that layer of the clinch game, the grappling game. Maybe not the wrestling, because again, from what I've seen, Brogdon Walker probably stops those attempts. But just clinching and grappling, could swing fights in her favor as well. Really, I see Juliana Miller as kind of having more skill of the two already, in addition to that higher ceiling. So we don't know how much she's improved since her time in the Ultimate Fighter. And I mean, she could be a lot more effective for this finale. But again, like I said, Brogdon Walker, a little bit older. She's not old by any means, but a little bit older from the perspective of you don't really expect her to incorporate many new tools in her game. Whereas Juliana Miller, less professional fights, younger, higher ceiling. She's someone as I can see as making much more improvements or even just overall changes fight over fight. So I like Juliana Miller here. I think she's going to be a little bit hungrier of the two, and I think she's going to find a way to get it done. Juliana Miller is my pick.
Yeah, I'm with you with these two fighters not being impressive at all. One thing that's going for Brogan is she's fought Miranda Maverick. She's fought in Invicta versus multiple fighters, Pearl Gonzalez, and she's beaten Miranda Maverick, albeit it was one of Miranda's earlier fights. She's shown in that fight that she does have good jiu-jitsu, that she does have good wrestling, that she can hold her own against a fighter that has high level or has good grappling. Because she's going to be facing a fighter this weekend that has really, really good jiu-jitsu. That's pretty much her game, Juliana Miller. She's a jiu-jitsu fighter, and I guess she's trying to round out, learn the rest of the game. But her jiu-jitsu is really good. She has that tournament-style jiu-jitsu. So it's obvious that she does jiu-jitsu tournaments. She's in competitions with jiu-jitsu, and so she should have an advantage with the grappling, with the jiu-jitsu, with the submission here. But Brogan Walker has jiu-jitsu as well, and she has wrestling as well, has grappling as well. So I think she can negate some of this stuff, and I think she's just physically a bit stronger. She's going to be the shorter fighter, but I think the strength, a lot of this fight's going to be grappling. I think the strength is going to help her. And one thing I seen in the fight with Miranda Maverick was she had good transitions, and Miranda's going for a takedown. She's able to stuff the takedown. Then she's able to get Miranda on her back. So these are things that I think she can do against Juliana Miller, being that she's going to be the stronger girl in there. And when it comes to striking, I think Brogan Walker has a better striking game than this Juliana Miller. I think she's still learning. So I'm going to go with Brogan Walker to get it done. In my opinion as well, she looked a bit better to me on the show. She might have had easier fighters, maybe. That might be the reason. But I was a bit more impressed with her fights than I was with Juliana Miller. But again, that's just my opinion. So I'm going to go with Brogan Miller here. I think she has the more complete game right now. But I do agree with you, Harris, that I think that Juliana Miller has the bigger ceiling. Like, she could be the person that she could be the fighter of the two in the next 5 years that makes drastic improvements and holds her own in the division. Like, she definitely has potential. She only has 2 or 3 fights, right? So, but I got to go at this point. I think Brogan can get her. I think Brogan can get it done right now. Better striking, stronger girl, knows how to grapple. So I think she can kind of dictate where the fight goes.
All right, fight number 4 of our main card, and the second of the 2 Ultimate Fighter finale fights in heavyweight. At the heavyweight division, I should say, we have Muhammad Usman, who is exactly who you think he is in terms of Kamaru's brother, taking on Zach Pauga. For Pauga, boxing-like in his stance, hands are solid. He's going to regularly use that jab. His combinations are pretty decent from what I've seen. He can definitely string his shots together. His technique looks pretty solid. The IQ looks pretty solid as well. Within those striking exchanges, I saw him land, 2, 3, 4 punches in a row, slip the one the opponent was returning back, and continue on with 2 or 3 additional punches. That exchange alone kind of let me know that he has that IQ to go along with the exchanges as opposed to being completely reckless. Fights, I know the weight here shows about 225, but from what I've seen, again, at least in this time on Ultimate Fighter, fights at about 245, so not quite the biggest heavyweight by any means. But that's going to allow him to be pretty decently agile, and doesn't have to have one of those styles where he slows down, right? So he can kind of keep things going. I'm curious to see how this fight goes, but again, pretty decent striking technique, pretty decent combinations. Muhammad Usman, not the biggest heavyweight in his own right. He fights at about 235. In his time on the Ultimate Fighter as heavyweight, very much even looks like a light heavyweight in terms of his frame. Kind of has that Alonzo Menefield type of frame to him. A lot of fakes and feints, a lot of level changes to go along with a decent regular jab. He's going to use that approach to potentially shoot for takedowns. The striking technique, not the cleanest from what I was seeing. Looping overhand hooks, kind of loses balance in those moments, kind of leaves himself open in those moments. He can be explosive, but beyond that, honestly speaking, that talent level is just not that high with him. He is quite limited in what he can do, and he is the type of fighter that's pretty limited. Again, just in even the type of fighter that he can beat. Paga to me, flat out better striker here. I don't see Usman as a strong wrestler by any means. Of course, he'll resort to the takedowns if he's hurt or if he's compromised or kind of even just showing those attempts for takedowns. But I haven't seen any kind of wrestling dominance from him the way we would with Kamaru to say, yeah, that's a serious threat of his. And again, like I said, Paga just has the better striking. Like we saw Muhammad Usman last year in PFL. He lost to a 40-year-old at that time. I remember watching that fight thinking to myself, okay, pretty cool to see Kamaru's brother doing some damage here, going up against a 40-year-old. They're definitely setting him up to have a performance. And then he goes ahead and loses that fight. So, he's in no way is he, that hot of a prospect, despite the potential name value that he has. And again, like I said, just when I look at this fight, I see exchanges on the feet almost exclusively going in Zach Pauga's favor, cleaner, more accurate, more capable, better IQ to actually catch Usman in those moments where he leaves himself vulnerable. It's a heavyweight fight. Anything can happen. Usman has that explosiveness, that natural strength, of course. But Pauga should get the job done here. He's going to be my pick.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. So this is a good fight. I'll be honest, I wasn't impressed with Usman on the show. He had a couple close encounters. I think I was talking to you, Harris, on the side about this. Like Usman, if he did these performances on the Contender Series, in one of those fights, he likely wouldn't get the contract. When I look at Zach, he looks like a guy in that, at least in that one fight, he's getting a contract. Like he looked better. But again, he's a light heavyweight. He's going to be fighting a heavyweight in Usman. Zach Paga was a light heavyweight on that show, fighting heavyweights, kind of like Kenny Florian when he was really a lightweight, and he was fighting guys in the middleweight division just to be on the show. So you kind of make sacrifices to be on that show. If they only have this weight class, they give you the call. It's not in your weight class. You got to go to the show though. And this guy made it all the way to the finals. So in this fight, I think it's going to be standing up. Zach Paga, I think he has more skills. I think he's fought 13 times in 3 years. They're bringing him up nicely. He's fought in LFA. He's fought in Cage Warriors. Outside of the UFC, Bellator, PFL, those are the organizations you want to kind of go through before you get to the big stage. And he's making the right decisions. So I think he gets this done, man. Like Usman, I remember when he fought the guy in the PFL, Sales. I was so let down in that fight, man. Like Usman got tired. He got labored. He couldn't get a takedown. He couldn't strike. This guy quit. He's not like Kamaru Usman at all. This guy, like he didn't get the genetics, right? Usman probably got more of the genetics from his father. He probably got more of the genetics from his mother. But he's not like Kamaru. So don't think that if you see his name, you're gonna go run pick this guy. He can win this fight. He's a big guy. If he lands that punch, he can knock out anyone. But I just think Paga has more fight, and I think he's gonna knock out Usman at some point in this fight. So I'm gonna go Zach Paga to get this done. And again, he looked pretty good on the show. So only thing is the size, but being in the light heavyweight might mean he has more skills. Usually the lower divisions, more skills are in those divisions. So him being in the light heavyweight division, fighting a heavyweight, he's going to be the quicker guy, the more skilled guy. So I think he gets the win here.
All right, let's go on to our co-main event of the evening. We have Vicente Luque taking on Jeff Neal. For Luque, he had a unanimous decision loss to Belal Muhammad back in April. Good hands, good form, good technique. Really just a lot of good things to say about Luque here. Constant calculated pressure coming forward. He has a really good jab. He can switch stance. Good striking diversity as well. Has a really good calf kick. Good technique, clean combinations, good power. On almost all of his wins are via finish. I think he has 11 TKOs to his name, 9 submissions to his name. So almost every fight has ended in a finish for him, with over 20 wins. That's pretty impressive. Decent takedown defense, although Bilal Muhammad, or at least a Bilal Muhammad level of wrestler, had no problems landing takedowns against him. Luque has a good clinch. He has a good ground game as well in his own right. Although, I would say he prefers the fight on the feet, at least lately. Jeff Neal prefers the fight on the feet as well. He beat Santiago Ponzinibbio back in December. Very confident in his ability on the feet. He has decent movement around the ring. He mixes it up pretty well between the punches and the kicks. He has speed in his punches. He throws a lot of fakes and feints, keeps his opponents guessing, times his opponents as well. He does have some wrestling, right? That gives him good balance. That gives him, solid takedown defense as well. So not completely a one-dimensional fighter, but again, only half a takedown per fight, very similar to Luque. They actually both have the same takedown accuracy percentage as well. So don't really expect either of these guys, or to want to take the fight to the ground, and don't expect the IQ that Jeff Neal has to equate to really any kind of offensive wrestling for him. And in terms of Jeff Neal, again, good power, but his power comes more so from accuracy, speed, natural power as well, timing, things like that, as opposed to kind of that touch of death alternative type of power. I think this is a high level striking match. Should be a fun one. I don't want us to have recency bias here when it comes to Vicente Luque. Although he lost his last fight, he was in complete control in the first couple of rounds in terms of the striking game, in terms of the pressure, in terms of the ring control. He showed why he is, at least in my opinion, ultimately a championship caliber fighter. For whatever reason, the good takedown defense that we've known him to have, it just kind of went out the window in the fight. And it allowed Bilal Muhammad, in my opinion, to kind of slip out of victory. It was pretty clear on the scorecards, but nonetheless, minus those takedowns, I think the scorecards would have looked a lot different. This fight, of course, is a lot different than that, because Jeff Neal doesn't really have that wrestling threat that Bilal Muhammad does. And in short, I really like these odds for Vicente Luque here. I can see Luque being more assertive with the stand up, coming forward, landing more consistently. That calf kick, landing cleaner combinations. Whereas Neal, I see, is going to be kind of better movement, better kind of stick and move type of moments. But Luque kind of just having, all the other moments kind of in between those stick and move moments. Jeff Neal, of course, I would give him the speed advantage. I think he has, like I said, better movement, lighter on the feet. But I don't think those advantages will serve him in this fight, because it's going to sort of cost him ring control. It's going to cost him the activity that Luque is going to come with. And again, that pressure style that Luque has, it's going to look good in the eyes of the judges. So, good fight, entertaining fight. Can't say it's a for sure for Luque. But when I kind of size these two guys up here, when I look at them stylistically, I really like the odds for Vicente Luque here, and he's definitely going to be my pick at -190.
Yeah, this fight I was going back and forth. I had when the fight was announced, I had Jeff Neal. I had him for the longest while, and I like this. I like this striking from range. I think a lot of the fight's going to be at range. I think Luque needs to kind of get in to get his striking off. But Jeff Neal, he can strike at range, and I think a lot of the action is going to be at that range. So I was thinking Jeff Neal's going to get this done, right? I think Jeff Neal, if he shows up, is a dangerous fighter against anyone that is not able to get him down to the mat, aside from Wonderboy. So I thought he can get it done, but the more I looked into it, I was thinking Jeff Neal, he's not looking as good as he used to, right? Like the Neil Magny fight, Neil Magny made him look bad in the striking as well, not just the takedowns, right? So yeah, Jeff Neal, I'm not sure where he's at. I'm not sure how motivated he is right now. Luque, we know that he still goes in there. He still tries to knock you out. He still goes for the finish. He's gonna have a solid chin. He has a I'm not sure if he's been knocked out, but not on memory. And I just think he's a tougher guy, man. If these guys are throwing bombs at each other, probably did get knocked out. But let's see, go down.
Doesn't look like.
Yeah, this guy's never been knocked out, man. Legendary chin. Yeah, I'm gonna bank on that, man, because they're both gonna hit each other, and it could be a matter of who's tougher. So I'm gonna go Vicente Luque here to get back in the win column here.
All right, so let's go on to our main event of the evening. We have Thiago Santos versus Jamahal Hill. For Thiago Santos had a unanimous decision loss to Magomed Ankalaev back in March. He can be explosive in spurts. He has a lot of pop on his punches. 22 wins, 15 of them are via KO, TKO, so you definitely have to respect that. Has that Muay Thai stance, southpaw, switch stance type of fighter, kick heavy attack. Sharp calf kicks when they land, good body kick. He can land a head kick as well. He actually has a capoeira background, so spinning kicks and things like that are not out of the question either. But for the most part, I noticed that not really the most active striker, kind of just moves at a slow pace. He is a BJJ black belt, but he's not someone who's going to actively try to bring the fight to the ground at all. Only half a takedown per fight and only 36% accuracy to go along with it. I think the biggest weakness for him is probably his cardio. He's been in 25-minute fights, but his pace and his explosiveness just slows all the way down. I even think about that Ankalaev fight, which was not to say high paced or not to say slow paced, but it was the type of pace that should have allowed him to kind of maintain his cardio. But even still in that fight, in a 25-minute setting, he was starting to slow down. So just doesn't have that cardio working for him at all, no matter what. From what I've seen, he will have a key advantage though against Jamahal Hill that I'll get to in a little bit. Jamahal Hill's on a 2-fight win streak. He beat Johnny Walker back in February. Southpaw, good power, good movement. He has some speed for the division as well, kickboxing style. Pretty light on his feet. Good choice of shots as well. Goes to the body. Doesn't look rushed. Improving fight over fight as a striker as well. In addition to that, he does have a decent clinch against the cage. Good Muay Thai. So you are going to see knees in the clinch, elbows in the clinch as well. Elbows coming out of clinch situations could be dangerous in those moments. Cardio doesn't seem to be an issue for him, although of course we haven't seen him battle tested. We haven't seen him deep into a round 4 or round 5 type of scenario. But just in terms of the signs, he doesn't really show the signs of slowing down. I think there's a big striking speed discrepancy here specifically. I think Jamahal Hill will be the fighter coming forward. He will be the more active of the two as well. Again, Thiago Santos has the advantage of being in 25-minute settings, whereas Jamahal Hill has not. So that could cause an issue from a pacing perspective, right? Or whether the pace is too quote unquote regular for Jamahal Hill, like he's thinking it's a 3-round setting, he comes out with that normal pace and then he slows down. Or sometimes fighters over prepare for a 5-round setting, then they go a little bit too slow to kind of start the fight. And like I said, Thiago Santos can be explosive in spurts and can be dangerous and is always dangerous in a light heavyweight fight. But I think above all, age has to be a factor at some point. I feel like Jamahal Hill's kind of that new breed of light heavyweight that these older guys they can't quite hang with anymore. Jamahal Hill, 31 years old, athletic prime, improving fight over fight, has a little bit of momentum behind his name now. Got one of the knockouts of the year against Johnny Walker already, earlier this year. Whereas Thiago Santos, 38 years old, definitely out of his prime. So I'm liking Jamahal Hill here. I can only really see Santos being a threat because he's naturally an explosive threat at times, but sort of beyond that, kind of catching Jamahal Hill sleeping, kind of catching Jamahal Hill starting off the fight too slow. Granted, that does not happen, which I don't think it will. I really like Jamahal Hill here, whether he kind of pieces his way to a points win or knocks him out. I think Jamahal Hill has a few options here, and I like his chances here to get the job done. So I'm going with Jamahal Hill, continue the momentum behind his name, continue moving up the rankings, and let's see who his next opponent's going to be. But Jamahal Hill's going to be my pick for this one.
Yeah, so let's start with Thiago Santos. I think he has the experience advantage, obviously. Striking wise, he's a striker first, right? So if he's in any striking fight, he's gonna have a chance to win that fight. And leg kicks, I think that's gonna be important in this fight. If he can utilize leg kicks against Jamahal Hill, I think that's gonna help him out a lot in this spot. He's a big guy, man. Look at the pictures right there, right, that we're looking at. He's a big guy, and he's gonna have the athleticism. He might have the power advantage. So this could be a tough fight for Jamahal Hill, right? But how I see the fight going is Hill's a smart fighter. He's gonna have his hands up. He's not gonna walk into some left hand or right hand hook, or he's not gonna walk into anything here. And he's gonna fight smart. This guy's gonna fight at range. He has really straight punches, really quick, and he's gonna march this guy down. And I think eventually Santos is gonna get hurt here. But Santos is a striker first. This is going to be a striking fight, so he definitely has a shot to win here. But you got to go with the young bull here. You got to go with the age matters, and I think I read a stat: the younger guy wins like 70% of the fights. So when you see a big discrepancy like this, you got to go with the younger guy, unless the older guy gives you reason to go that route. And Thiago's not giving me any reason to go that route. So I'm gonna have to go with Jamahal Hill. Utilizing that pressure, in and out with his striking, eventually landing something and then finishing the fight.
All right, so let's take it to Vegas. Let's see where we end up here. Starting with kind of some underdog action, I will read them out. Mayra Bueno Silva, like I mentioned, flipped to underdog status. I think she started off as a favorite, but she is officially the underdog at the time of recording, of course. Miranda Granger is underdog. Jason Witt, Takashi Sato, Erick Gonzalez versus Terrance McKinney, Sam Alvey versus Michał Oleksiejczuk, Priscila Cachoeira, Augusto Sakai, Brogan Walker versus Juliana Miller, Muhammad Usman, Jeff Neal, and Thiago Santos.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Brogan Walker.
All right, so Brogan Walker, pretty much an even money underdog there. In terms of my underdog pick, I'm looking at Takashi Sato. You are very right in that battle has IQ. He's a smart fighter, so I can see why he's the favorite. But again, I don't think he's been tested, and I think Sato is a good test for him. So I think Sato does have a shot at winning. And in terms of some favorites, what direction are you leaning in, or parlay, or however you want to word it?
All right, so I'm gonna roll with Sergey Spivak.
Yep.
I'm gonna roll with Michał Oleksiejczuk. Even though I gave caution, you have to give me a decision on these fights. He's one of the easier ones. This is a tougher card. So Michał Oleksiejczuk. I'm gonna go with Bryan Battle.
All right, so those three fights would be a 2.28 at that point. $100 will get you a total return of $228. For our bigger bettors, $250 will get you a total return of $571. In terms of my kind of favorites or parlay pieces, a few common items with yours. I'm kind of trying to figure out how to narrow it down to three fights. I think my narrowing will come down during weigh-ins or during the ceremonial weigh-ins, because for now I kind of have four fights that I'm looking at. I will provide all four for the sake of this video, but I will very intentionally say I am waiting until the ceremonial weigh-in to cut that down to three. I'm not sure who I'm getting rid of yet. But in terms of the four fights that I'm looking at Cory McKenna to get a job done. Similarly, I'm looking at Michał Oleksiejczuk, and similarly, I am looking at Sergey Spivak. but I'm also looking at the main event, Jamahal Hill. Again, new breed versus a fighter on the decline in Thiago Santos. So those four, as it currently stands, would be a 3.14. What that means is that $100 will get you a total return of $314, and for our bigger bettors, $250 will get you a total return of $786. So we are going to officially sign off on that note. Of course, make sure you subscribe to the channel here at Boxing MMA Picks. Make sure you press the thumbs up on this video, and most importantly, we want to hear from you in the comments. How do you feel about our picks? Who is your underdog pick? If you want specific intel or deeper analysis about a specific fight or a specific prop within a fight, let that be known in the comments as well, and we're more than happy to have that conversation with you. But officially signing off for this UFC event, UFC Fight Night, Thiago Santos versus Jamahal Hill. Also, the fighter finale. Officially signing off. This has been your full card prediction video presented by yours truly here at Boxing MMA Picks. He goes by Zahn, I go by Harris, and in our usual fashion, let's get this money.
Let's get it.